A big hello to you all, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to my home office here in Melbourne, Australia. It's 7:30 a.m. in the morning. The sun's just coming up. We had daylight savings last weekend, so kind of our days have flipped. I hope you and your families are all well. It's interesting times at the minute. And I hope you're all set up for success. Yeah, I did a webinar for an organization yesterday. And they were talking about, well, from a culture perspective, what's some things that we can do? And I was like, well, you can make sure that everyone's got established routines. You can make sure that everyone has got a space where they can work. I think we often forget that in the rush to congratulate ourselves and how great and agile we all are is that everybody's dealing with this in very different ways. And so I think providing help, support, coaching on the routines, and also kind of making sure that you're not wedded to 9 to 5 right now. I mean, you shouldn't have really been anyway wedded to 9 to 5 because the nature of work is such that it gets done at whatever time. And I'm really hoping that flexibility sticks post COVID-19 because I think that, providing you set really clear expectations about the outcomes that you expect from individuals, then really they can do them at whatever stage of the day that they have available. And particularly now for those of us who've got children at home. We've got 2 children here. We've got a 13-year-old and a 12. I make it sound like they're not my children. We've got just 2 random children here. They just walked in one day and we said, okay, you can stay. Yeah, we got 2 kids. We're not homeschooling them. I just want to make that clear. Like everyone's like, I'm homeschooling my children. It's like, no. We're letting our teachers school them because there's just no way I can teach my son anything because he's already got lots and lots of talking down pat. So we've got this whole balancing act going on at the minute, which means that work's happening at all different stages of the day. And for me, especially, we want to make sure the kids are doing the right thing. So my wife and I are sharing responsibilities. Anyway, enough of that. It's got nothing to do with digital transformation. All right, so the way this works, it'd be great if you can just pop in the chat there and just say hello and let me know where you're joining from, where in the world you are. Are you in your living room? Are you in your office? Where are you? Be good to know what everyone's little setup is. So the chat is for any kind of thoughts that you have around what I'm presenting. It would be great to see that there. Anything that you're doing, anything that you've tried, anything that really resonates with you. As we go through, feel free to take pictures and screenshots. For those of you who are on the Culture Fix community, and I'll give you the link to that at the end. The recording, we generally put the recording up later this morning. So you're the first to get the access to the recording if you want to watch it again. Hello from the kitchen. Alicia, very good. Brisbane, Adelaide, Chico. Hello, Elizabeth. It's so great to have you all here. So thank you so much for making the time. And I don't know about you guys. I mean, I'm using this time not only to kind of help other people, coach other people. It's more on that shortly, but also to develop myself as well. I'm looking at different articles, different blogs. 3 books came yesterday that I intend to read and to really better myself. And yeah, thanks, Jules. So the recording will go onto YouTube as well. All right, well, let's get cracking on digital transformation. I'm going to share my screen with you. If you just give me a second, I will just do that. All right. And so what you should get is a picture of me and also a picture of the slideshow. It may take a couple of seconds just to pop up there. All right, we're going to talk about digital transformation projects. Anybody got any problems seeing the screen? Just let me know. And what I'll do is I'll flick back to the chat and just keep an eye on there. Now, if you've got any questions, there's a little button at the bottom that says ask a question. So feel free to just pop in your question there at any time. Now, if you have any kind of stream errors, what I suggest, John, is if you just refresh. There's a significant load on the network at the minute. So we find that if you refresh, you should be able to get back in. But at any problems, that generally clears it up. Okay, so yeah, the question at the bottom just it says ask a question. Pop it in there and I will return to the questions as we go. I'll keep my eye on that one. All right, back to the presentation. So how to make your digital transformation project successful. And I, for me, that's where when I think of the career that I have now in kind of public speaking and doing programs, it was digital transformation that started it all. I was asked to become a project manager in 1997. I am that old. When I was 10, to do year 2000 projects. And they were the first real, what we would call digital transformation projects. That's not to say that computing hadn't been around before then. I remember working for a bank when I was 17, 18. I was part of a task force, we called it then, to input new terminals. But things didn't really change until Y2K and year 2000. For those of you who weren't born, people like me saved the world. We did. It was all about fundamentally changing the way that people did things. So, when I think back, it was all about digital transformation. And my job, when I was hired because I was good with people and I was good with teams. That's specifically why I was hired as a project manager. I was selling advertising space for a newspaper in Liverpool at that time. And they said, "Oh, you're good with people, you're good with teams, you want to be a project manager?" I'm like, "Cool, awesome. What's a project manager?" And they were like, "Oh, you get a car, you get a phone, and you'll be away from home for 4 years." I'm like, I am in. I am so in. So it was awesome. But, it's only when I started the job and I said to my then boss, who I was looking to work for a proper leader who really, really helped me, really supported me. He said, "It's your job to build a bridge between what we're doing and how it will impact the organization." He said that we're actually implementing technology. He said, and they don't want it. He said, "I can tell you right now, as a newspaper business, they don't want it. They've been cutting and pasting and marking up and doing all of these things for like 100 years. He said, "They don't want what we're implementing." And we were implementing page makeup, so how they make up newspaper pages. We were implementing advertising systems. We were implementing marketing. We were doing the whole lot. It was full business transformation in 9 months. And we had six sites, so 6 different cities, 6 or 8, it might have even been 8 cities that we had to do in 3.5 years. And we achieved it. And so my job, and it was a very steep learning curve, was to build a bridge. So my job was relationships and communication. Fast forward now 20 years, and pretty much everything that people are doing is all about digital. You look at the figures for digital spend, and really this was 2018. They're due to produce another report this year. I expect this number to go up, because if you're not going digital, what are you doing? Now, if you've got any kind of digital transformation program on right now during COVID-19, which is when we're recording this, then you've got a huge opportunity to fast track some of the things that you're doing, but only if you do it in the right way. I'm working with one organization in Canberra. They've got a modern workforce program, and we love to attach different names to our digital transformation programs, new ways of working, a modern workforce, and lots of good stuff like that. And I think one of the things that I would, I suppose, guard against, or get you to guard against very early on, is using jargon. Because we love to use jargon. We love to talk about digital transformation. We love to talk about moving from one state to another. So as much as you can, avoid the jargon. Agile's the latest jargon. I see this in a lot of digital transformation programs. Now, Agile is just a method of work, in the way that Six Sigma is a method of work, Prince 2 is a method of work, Lean is a method of work. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the answer to all of your failing projects. You shouldn't apply it to everything. Absolutely not. That's not how it should be used. But you telling people you're going to be doing your transformation project Agile won't gain any more buy-in. Actually, if anything, it will just get people's backs up more and more, because these things come around the traps every 6-7 years. And I know I've done plenty over my 30 years in work. So, transformation, digital transformation is all about, well, how do we take what we do now and make it more modern? So as much as you can, you want to use language that helps people better understand what you're trying to do, not alienate or create a barrier between you and what you're trying to do. Now, most organizations around the world are doing some form of digital transformation. I spoke to a farming company in New Zealand at the end of last year at a conference. I spoke to the CEO, and they're using drones. They're using drones to manage cattle. And he was asking about digital transformation because I did a presentation on it. And he was like, oh, yeah, we're implementing the drones, but farmers don't want to use them. I was like, okay, cool. How have you engaged farmers from the start? He was like, oh, well, we told them that we were implementing drones. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. The inner child in us is just going to push back and go, no, we're not. I'm doing it the old fashioned way because that's the way I like doing it. Which is why from that 84%, only 3% have ever completed anything successfully. Because most people get into their digital transformation programs or projects and it becomes all about just implementing the technology. And so I'm going to make it clear what this thing called digital transformation actually is, because that will help with the implementation of it. Now, for everybody involved in any kind of transformation initiative, what they have to realize is their senior management team have to be in 100% from the start. Not only that, what they have to do is modify their behaviors accordingly from the start. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to collapse. The whole thing is going to fall in on itself. Because what you get is pockets of people around the business talking in different ways about what this thing actually is. So you need a really strong narrative. You need a really strong story around your transformation. Where are you going from? Where are you going to? A big part of it is culture redesign, which I'll talk about shortly. Because if you don't have the senior management team aligned, and if they don't behave in the way that they want everybody else to, then it's not going to happen. Now, we're seeing some examples of this right now within in COVID-19, is we're seeing pockets. We're seeing people who issue ways that other people need to behave, and then they're going doing something else. There was one overnight. Where a mayor in a city here in Melbourne, 3 hours earlier told everyone in an email that they all had to stay inside, all had to do the social distancing. And then 3 hours later, he stood outside a pub having a drink with 3 people stood next to him. And he got fined by the police, and damn right too. But if they're not setting the example, what's everybody else to think? And that's where you kind of get this anarchy towards transformation. McKinsey found this. They analyzed many transformation projects from around the world. And he said that they fail because senior managers don't act as role models for change. And or because people in the organization defend the status quo. And so where you have senior managers that defend the status quo, what they do is they're sending the message to everyone else that it's okay. We're not going to change. Everyone else is going to change. It's not us. So if you're leading any kind of transformation program, it's crucially important that you create a story around your transformation. And stories are hugely powerful. You talk, stories about the way that you do things now, stories about the way that you're going to do things in the future. You want to create very, very human connections with individuals. But you also have to be high in empathy. Because the thing about transformation programs is that they affect literally everybody. And we forget that. And we get in organizations, we get excited about the new tool that we're going to do. Like Microsoft Teams is the thing right now. What we're going to do is we're going to do it in Teams. And those of us who like technology are like, awesome. What we need is another collaboration tool. But don't forget, we'll have used different tools over the kind of last 5, 10, even 15 years. Some have worked, some haven't. And it's not that the tools don't work, it's that we never change the culture at the same time, is we never find different ways of working. We didn't find different ways of behaving. We didn't create kind of rules about how we're going to work together differently and make time for new ideas. So there has to be lots and lots of empathy, and lots of empathy from senior managers. Because sometimes I feel like digital transformation projects are managed from a schedule, and they should be managed from the heart because of the effect on individuals. Now, that's not to say you don't need a plan. Of course, you need a plan. Of course, you do. But it's very much like, oh, we've achieved this milestone. We've achieved this milestone. We've achieved this milestone. And one organization I worked with last year, they were like, oh, it's cool. We've achieved this milestone. Let's celebrate. They'd made 3 people redundant as part of that. And so, kind of celebrating that particular milestone for me didn't feel appropriate. And that's what I said to them. I said, like, it's great that you're on schedule, but from an empathy perspective, there's no way I would have celebrated that milestone because you made 3 people redundant. And the guy was like, oh, well, they left 2 months earlier. I was like, but they still have friends here. That's just like burying someone and saying, well, he's dead. Let's get on with life. It doesn't work like that. So there has to be lots of empathy because it does involve change pretty much everywhere. Now, you'll forgive me for teaching you to suck eggs a little bit here because you probably know a little bit of this, but it's worth me reiterating. So from an organizational perspective, what we have is a strategy. Our strategy is aligned to our vision. So you have a vision, a short, sharp statement of where it is that you want to go as a business. And then we build a strategy to reinforce that, to say the way that we achieve our vision is through this strategy. Now, we used to write, some of you probably on the call, probably remember 5-year strategies, 10. I remember 10-year strategy one. I think I've even got a copy of it in a storage unit somewhere. I should really clean that out at this time while I've got time on my hands. We don't do those anymore because they're just out of date after the first year. The maximum we do now is 3 years, I think, and that's a sensible thing. Any more than that, and it's going to literally be out. I mean, most of them are out of date after year 1 anyway because of the pace of change right now. As part of our strategy, what we do is we outline a set of goals, and this is how we know that we've achieved our strategy. Here are the goals that we have, and when we've achieved the goals, then we can refresh the strategy, potentially refresh the vision, and away we go. The last organization I worked in the UK was a retail organization. Awesome. We set a vision as a management team that 300 of us went off site for 2 days. And a lot of the work that I did with that organization, I still replicate in my own work because it was so successful. Off the back of the vision, we built a strategy. We set ourselves some goals to be the largest online retailer in the UK within 3 years. And we achieved those goals, at which point we reset the vision, reset the strategy. Underpinning the strategy and the goals is the culture. Right. And Drucker's famous quote is culture eats strategy for breakfast. What he was saying is it's all very well having a good strategy, but if you don't have the culture, forget it. Forget it. And that's the piece that people forget over and over again. They think that the culture will just change itself. They think the culture will just implement itself. They think the culture will evolve positively to meet the goals. And it doesn't. It doesn't. All right. So you've got the culture, and then the way that we the way that we achieve our goals is through business as usual, the stuff we need to do to run the business, and our projects. This is how we grow the business. Now, what's unique about digital transformation is it fits in business as usual and the project portfolio. Now, you could argue that every project impacts business as usual. Of course they do. All projects introduced incremental change. That's the nature of projects. That was my life for 15 years. They do. And you have to have this real intersection between project and change management. Most organizations, KPMG found that only 3% of organizations ever get the benefits from their projects, only 3%. And it's because they're not very good at the change management piece. Change practitioners are pulling their hair out, right? Because change management has become about training and communications, and it's not. It's about cultural evolution. That's what change is all about. That's what change management's all about, cultural evolution. It's helping people to move from one state to another, helping people change their behaviors, helping people change their routines. Right? That's what change management is all about. But digital transformation staggers the two because of the amount of change you're introducing into business as usual. At that point in time, there's no kind of cooling off period. There's no kind of, we'll implement this and you can start using it in 3 months, which is why the culture has to be absolutely spot on from the start. Now, when it comes to strategy, we're very good at saying things like, what gets measured gets managed. So when the digital piece of digital transformation is all about strategy, right? The organization has a digital element to their strategy. Not everything is going to be digital, but, kind of in this day and age now, 2020, most things we're looking to automate. Most things we're looking at how we can use technology to make our lives easier, better, smarter. Okay. So when we talk about digital transformation, the digital piece refers to the strategy. Okay. whereas the transformation piece relates to the culture. So when we talk about digital transformation, it's about, well, how are we going to take our strategy forward and transform the way we get things done? And a culture is all about what gets mentioned, gets modified. And so it's crucial at the start of your digital transformation project that you take feedback on the things that are working well and the things that don't. Now, most organizations do this already. They call it an engagement survey. Your engagement survey provides you with feedback from people on what works, what doesn't. Now, for most of you, if they're full of moans, then what you've not done as a business is address some of the performance issues that you've had before. And so performance or behavior. So I would say most engagement surveys, every time I work with organizations on culture programs, and I do a mix of things. I do like 2 days to help people reset culture or longer term things to help them evolve their culture. I always start with the engagement survey. I was like, let's have a look at the feedback. Most of it is people moaning about senior management behavior. And my first question is, why hasn't this been dealt with? Why hasn't this bully been got rid of? Oh, it's really hard. I'm like, don't make excuses. It's your job to make sure that there's a safe workplace for people to be able to be the best version of themselves. Then they really care about their job, their work, and that's how you get change, and that's how you get a vibrant culture. All right, well, we'll see what we can do. It's like, well, you kind of got to deal with that stuff if you want to transform anything. And so most people are often surprised when I talk about digital transformation, they want me to talk about the mechanics of projects, when actually it's fundamentally about the emotional intelligence of people and how well we're helping people overcome the challenges that they face. So the transformation of digital strategy, transformation, culture. What gets mentioned gets modified. So you want to collect as many stories as you can about the way things happen right now. Now, often this is done in a very process, methodical way. Oh, the process right now is, and that's cool, right? That's all right. Find the ways, but, just document that in the way that you would. But you also want to find out about those very human connections that will be lost or enhanced when you implement your new tools. So there's one pharmaceutical company who I worked with. They were implementing a new ERP system. And it was all about automating processes. I'm like, but what's going to be lost in the interactions of people when you move to a tool? I was like, because they're the things that people will talk about. They're the very human things. Now, this wasn't about removing heads. It wasn't about cutting jobs. It was about removing the amount of time it takes to do things. So they created a whole case, and we call them stories or user stories, for technology, to make sure that we capture those things, those very human interactions. Very, very important. Because what you want to do for your digital transformation project is start as you mean to go on. And what that means is if you want to transform to one state to another, you've got to specify the culture that you're shooting for. So that means redefining it from the start. So most people will get to the end of implementing a piece of technology and then try and change the culture. By then, it's too late. It's too late. And then what you'll end up is this never-ending firefighting. You'll talk about lack of buy-in. You'll talk about people getting in the way. Yeah, because what you didn't do is redefine the culture from the start. Because when you define the culture up front, then you've got a better chance of embedding the technology into the new culture. Now, for a digital transformation program or a team, you should role model what you expect of others. Now, culture is evolutionary, right? So it's not about drawing up a new culture and saying, right, that's the way that we'll work from now on. What you need to do is involve as many people as possible in the definition of culture, such that they are prepared, such that they're ready, and that they've been given the opportunity to talk about what it's going to take to gain their buy-in. Now, as a digital transformation project team, you want to set your culture up front before you start your project. So before you even do this work with the rest of the business. And what you want to do is identify who's going to go first, essentially, with the digital transformation project. So let me split those in two. As a project team, you need a vibrant culture. You need to behave. You need to set your behaviors. You need to set your collaboration principles. You need people to look at you and go, well, if that's what we're going to implement, that kind of culture, then I want in. You want people to be asking to join. And so this is what we used to do in our transformation projects. We used to create such great team cultures that we had so many people who wanted to be part of the team. So we defined the behaviors. We got to know each other. We did personality surveys. We learned how to communicate in different ways to different people. We communicated little and often, but in different ways. We had flyers, we had videos, we had webinars, we had presentations. We did lots and lots of different things. So that's what we did as a team, right? Because when you set your digital transformation team up in that way, it becomes a growth mindset for the organization. Now, once you've got that, what you want to do then is help that. And a big part of digital transformation is making sure that you've got a culture stream and you're working methodically through the organization, helping them to define the culture that they need in order to be successful with the tools that you're implementing. Not much money is spent on culture. Not many people have a budget for it. They have a training and development budget. Digital transformation projects, even though transformation is what they're doing, transforming culture, they don't have a budget for running any kind of cultural workshops. There's a few people that do. So ING, Dutch Bank ING are a great example of one that got digital transformation right back in 2014-15. They started with the emotional intelligence of their employees and culture. And they reset the culture and they said, going forward, these are the behaviors that we expect of people. Going forward, this is what we expect when you're working together from a collaboration perspective. Oh, and this is the way that we'll make time for new ideas. They reset their vision. And so they gave everybody the opportunity to be part of that. So let me take an organization of 1,000 people, right? And it works the same at scale. 1,000 people, you've got 5 departments, each with 200 people in. What you do is take as many of those people off site for a day or two, as many as you can without compromising business as usual activity. And you get them to redefine the culture that they need in order to be successful. So what you've done straight away is dealt to the transformation piece. And then you can introduce any kind of tools in there over time, providing they uphold what they agreed to. And that's the thing about culture, right? It's the sum of everyone's attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, traditions, and skills. Everybody. If you don't give everybody a say, it's very easy for people to reject it. It's very easy for people to get in the way of change. It's very easy for them to say that they don't buy in. It's very easy for them to not join in when everybody else is working a different way. However, when they've been part of the definition process and when you've drawn up what that new culture looks like, you've got something to hold everybody to. And when you get this right, what happens is every member of the culture holds each other to what they've defined. It's not down to the manager to do it, although the manager's got a job to uphold that new culture. All right, they've got to talk positively about it. They're the ones who have the growth mindset. They have to role model what the change looks like. They have to demonstrate the behaviors, because they become role models for it. Otherwise, what you get is this real lack of engagement, right? So if you don't have any engagement with what it is that you're trying to do, you've either got a void of nothing, so that's stagnant, where people just get in the way, right? Lots of low emotional intelligence. People just disengaging, headphones on, don't want to be part of anything. They just keep it at arm's length. That's for you. It's not for me. Or you get this pleasant culture. Now, pleasant cultures are very humane. There's lots of humanity and empathy. There's just no action. It's just nice. But no one wants to change anything. They'll change when somebody else changes. Oh, well, when they do it, I'll do it. Oh, it's going to be hard, isn't it? That's what pleasant cultures do. Anything above the line, that's where you get change. But combatant, particularly if it's too far left as you look at the model, what you get is a lot of real behaviors. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of stress. So there's a lot, that's where kind of from a culture perspective, what you want to be is to the right of that line, high emotional intelligence. And you can only do that if you help people to be more emotionally intelligent. You've got to help, support, coach them on those things. Now, I just flick back to the chat here. Let me have a look. Oh, there's a couple of people having issues. Oh, that's a shame. We haven't had that before. We'll check on that. Rob, Crowdcast only appears to work on certain browsers. Oh no, we did check that. We haven't really had a problem. What are the compatible browsers? Okay, all right. We'll look into that for next time. Amberine, we had an offsite last August, and our team culture was a positive part of our company. That's awesome, Amberine. I think that as well, if you're undertaking any kind of initiative, what you want is to really talk about it, elevate it, and as you're transforming, is make sure you're having the discussion about culture. So successful with all of that in mind, here's what successful transformation requires. So it requires continual executive support. They have to demonstrate the behaviors. They have to be willing to spend money. They have to be willing to spend money on culture. It can't be an afterthought. It has to be part of the plan up front. All right, the organizations that succeed are the ones that address the culture as part of the transformation project. They don't cross their fingers and hope that it transforms itself at the end. The culture definition to realize the post-implementation benefits. We're very good at creating business cases for digital transformation projects. And in them, what we do is we outline what we expect at the end, particularly financial benefits. What most people fail to realize, because the transformation piece is about culture, is largely, unless you're kind of retiring some infrastructure and the costs associated with that, you won't get those benefits straight away. If it's cultural, it's 3, 6, 9, 12 months until you actually get any of those benefits, right? But what you need to do is make sure the culture is set up to deliver those. And a big part of that is increasing the self-awareness of individuals, making sure that they understand their contribution, not only to their job on a daily basis, which is important, but also to the culture, right? Because if they don't do their bit to help you stay in that vibrant quadrant, then they're going to become the problem. And what you need more than anything is a growth mindset. You need people to know that what you're doing is possible and will succeed. You need them to have that mindset, right? Now, like I said, any kind of transformation project, you have stress, you have anxiety. And what you want to do is provide the mechanisms and the support and give them the opportunity to have the input such that what gets created is something that they feel part of. We only ever buy into something if we've had a say or we feel part of it. Right. And then it's about constant reinforcement, not telling them to be positive. You can't do that. Right. What you have to do is show them, help them, coach them, mentor them. And that's the hardest part of transformation. And that's where change managers really earn their corn, is by helping, coach and supporting people to implement the new required culture. Now, of course, like any good project, it requires good planning. And it requires discipline. It requires courage of delivery. Now, I'm not big on specifying the method that you should use to deliver, because you should use a multitude of things. Now, great project managers, what they have is they have the knowledge of when waterfall works, when agile works, and they're able to bring all of those things together. The great cultures, the people who are great at delivery, they don't talk about agile and waterfall. They would say, oh, we're going to do it in an agile way. I see loads of organizations making that mistake. We're doing a digital transformation project and we're going to do everything agile. That's when you know it's going to fail, because they've made it about the method, not about the humans. Because transformation projects are about humans. And sure, of course, methods can add value. Of course they can. They can speed things up and they can make sure you have the right amount of rigor. But what you want are professionals that are trusted to use their knowledge to do things in the right way for this particular piece of work. But make no mistake about it, there's going to have to be performance management on the way. There are going to be people that want to get in the way of delivery, and you can't allow that to happen. You can't allow that to happen. And so it's crucial that expectations are set really well. So once you've done that cultural redesign, once you've reset expectations about what you expect from people, then they have to be held to that. Like I said, when you do it well, the team hold each other to it. But usually there's a couple of guys, there's always guys, who just want to be difficult. And that's where you have to follow the formal HR, people and culture process to make sure people are performance managed. The difference is, though, what you've got is a completely redefined culture that they were part of. So there's no hiding place. They can't say that that was being done to them. And it's always about behavior. You always want to talk about the behavior. For those of you who have children, we know that's all we do is we praise the good behavior because we want more of the good behavior. And when they do something that kind of they shouldn't, we talk about the behavior there as well and said that's the bit that wants to change, right? Because usually at the root cause of everything is the behavior. There will be lots of process design, redesign, but again, engage people in a different way. Most people run 2-hour workshops that just suck the life out of you. You want to really make these things fun. Now, you can't tell people it's going to be fun, but you want music, you want a lightness to it. You want them to be 40 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes, not an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes. All those things are so standard. If you want to transform the culture, then you've got to start doing some different things from the start. This is why the team has to be the role model for the way that they want the rest of the business to work. They have to embrace the tools. They have to embrace different behaviors. They have to show the mindset on a daily basis. All right, it's crucially important that they do that alongside making sure that everybody is fully trained on the new tools and any methods that you're going to use. It's not about just sending everyone on a course so they can get a certificate, so they can get a badge. It's not just about that. It's about the behaviors that come with that. But you need to make sure that they've got full working practical knowledge of these things, right? So I remember when that Microsoft Office had a big redesign, didn't they, around about 2010. And the company I was working for, I was working at senior manager in government at that time. And we put a change program together that was excellent. The project manager did a fabulous job where we trained everyone. It was a full day. People didn't want to do it. We broke it up a full day on Microsoft Word, a full day on Microsoft Excel, and a full day on Microsoft PowerPoint. And we gave people no excuses. We did the training at different times, and we said, if you want to get the most out of these tools, you need to do this one day. We didn't make it mandatory, right? Because as soon as you make it mandatory, command and control, people push back. But we talked about the value to the individual. Of course, everybody wanted in to learn how to use the tools. Because I think there was a stat going around, I'm not sure how true it was, that we only ever use kind of 5% of Word's capabilities, something like that. It's the same with Microsoft Project. Microsoft Project was a tool that when I went on the 2-day course, I didn't realize how great it was. And then after the 2 days, I'm like, this is one of the best scheduling tools I've ever used. And so it's a good segue onto the project management piece. Whoever's leading your project really has to be at the top of their game. So they have to do the planning, they have to do the monitoring, they have to do the controlling, they have to do the delivery, and they have to stay in control of their emotion at all time. Now, planning is crucial. We're very good at drawing up a business case and talking about the benefits from our digital transformation project, and then we rush headlong into it straight away without taking time to plan. If you're doing a year-long transformation project, you need to spend 2 to 3 months planning, unless you don't need any certainty around time and cost, in which case you can do it in a more agile way. You can do shorter sprints. Okay. But a big part of your plan is you can identify which of those things you can do in sprints. So you might have an overarching kind of waterfall plan, and you might have some agile projects within that. All right. But it has to be a good plan. And at the end of the planning phase, you've got to know exactly what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, at least for the next 3 months. And you need to compare how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take to the business case. You want to make sure expectations are sound from the start. You need a real solid plan. The project manager's job then is to monitor that plan, right? That's their job. But not only monitor the plan, they've got to monitor risks. They've got to monitor issues. They've got to monitor people and the well-being of people. All right, so that's the psychological safety. Big part of the planning is making sure we build the team. Then as we start delivering, if we do our culture redesign, make sure there's good safety within all of the teams. Because if there's no safety within the teams, you're never going to get the transformation. You're never going to get it. So that's another thing that they monitor. Also, the performance of people. The control is not about controlling people. It's about controlling the different elements of the projects. Kind of when we need to mitigate risks. What are those things that we can accept? What is the priorities of the issues that we face? Also, where we need to elevate people because they're behavioral role models, and where we need to performance manage people because they're getting in the way. And there's some great project people out there, but there are also some people that don't have the stomach for the job, and it involves for performance managing people. And so these people always stay as managers. They never become project leaders. And what leaders do, they're able to motivate and inspire everyone. Generally, it only takes one conversation to make sure that people understand the expectations of them, and to outline that you don't want to have a second conversation. And the third conversation is with someone from HR. They do it in a highly emotionally intelligent, empathetic way. They always stay in control of their emotions. And that's how you get to deliver. By inspiring, motivating a group of people, by creating this team environment that they want to be part of. That's how you deliver. And then you replan, monitor, control, deliver, and you go round and round the circle until you finish implementing the thing. Now, at some stage, there's been a crossover between project management and change management. And for those of you long in the tooth, you know that change managers are used at the start. They're a big part of the start of the planning, because you've got to start implementing the transformation piece throughout the tool creation and implementation. And that's why change managers are involved at the start with the redefinition of the culture. And then they make sure there's training, there's good communication. We make sure that there's a behavior reinforcement, such that once we implement the tool or the product or whatever it is that we're doing, you're already 75, 80% of the way there with the culture. You don't then have to redefine it. Because if you're having to redefine it, then you've just created a brick wall that you have to run through and ask other people to follow you. You don't want that. You want change to start when the project starts. And that way you get that incremental delivery. So these are the key behaviors required through any digital transformation initiative. You need courage to do things differently, the courage to have conversations about behavioral expectations. You need the discipline to get things done. You need the discipline to reject elements of scope that people want to add, right? It's about making sure that we get through. Transformation is things that have to keep happening and constantly evolve. And we need a program where the culture constantly evolves throughout the life of the program. And that's either through things like brown bag lunches or speeches. My programs, I go back once a month and I do a keynote speech, and then I do coaching to help people successfully transform. Collaboration is huge. You need people to work together. You can't tell them to do it. You have to encourage it. That's why that cultural definition piece is vital at the start. And you need new ideas. Innovation doesn't live in a hub. I'm going to talk about that on the webinar next month. It doesn't live in a hub. It lives inside every single one of us. And so it's important from an innovation perspective that we draw those ideas out of people, because there are so many great ideas that live inside of us too. So we need to make sure that those come out. And then the last thing is empathy. Remembering that transformation is about culture. Culture belongs to every single human being within the organization. So if we're not using empathy, all we're going to do is create barriers. We're going to create problems. We're going to give people excuses to check out of what it is that we're trying to do. So for me, they're the 5 key behaviors. Now, I'd love to see 20 different behaviors, but they're the 5 ones for any successful transformation project. So some actions, if you're on the way with your digital transformation project right now, here's some things that you could try if you haven't already. It's firstly, define the new culture. Do it for your digital transformation project team first. Make sure you stand up their culture in a way that people are like, how do I join that? And then help different parts of the organization to establish their new culture, such that they'll welcome anything new that you throw at them. Secondly, when you get agreement on the behaviors, make sure that they're reinforced and staff are holding themselves to that. Accountability is key there. Number 3, it's an obvious thing to say, but make sure there's a good plan and that you deliver incrementally. Number 4, don't allow people to get in the way. Don't. They'll want to. You have to deal with that because they're going to they're not going to suddenly change when the tool's implemented, right? So you need to get them involved in resetting the cultural expectations, and then you need to manage them to it. I don't want to see any single person lose their job, but if they're getting in the way of progress, there has to be a consequence. It's a part of the job that I hated doing as a senior exec, but I did it. And I lost sleep over it. I had to make people redundant that I didn't want to do. You don't want to do that. All right. But if they're not performing and they're not behaving, then they have to go. And then lastly, that point that I made earlier, make sure that the transformation teams are role models of how it should be done. Now, just a couple of little quick plugs before I take some questions. So the Culture Fix community is a place where practitioners, and I know there's a bunch of you on the call who are part of the community. And I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who is. What we wanted to do was to create a safe space that was away from the noise of LinkedIn and Facebook, which is just an idea for people to share how they're transforming cultures. And so there's been some fabulous shares on there, some great insights from people. We continue to share different articles that we see. It's not a place for selling stuff. It's not a place for consultants to be. It's just a place for sharing ideas and sharing knowledge. As part of that, I recorded 3 online programs. So I recorded a Culture Makers Masterclass. It's really for change managers to help to give them the knowledge of how to change culture, how to change culture. So all of these are how-to guides, right? They're not superficial. Here's my idea and my opinion. They're all how-to guides. The EQ room is about how you be the best version of yourself. So it's all about emotional intelligence and how can you bring the best of you to work every day. And then project leadership is all of the things that the methods don't teach you, right? From someone who's been there and done that. So it's all about the leadership qualities that you need to successfully lead projects and lead people. So there's these monthly webinars. I do regular Q&As. It's a community of like-minded people. So we've already had different people connect in different ways. We do polls. We do research. We provide curated content. Now, all of the stuff in the green box is all free. That's all free. You can just join for free. If you wanted access to the programs, that's $75 for the year. And so what I intend to do is do new modules every year. So in September this year, we'll be recording new modules for culture makers and project leadership based on what the community is looking for. There's also the Culture Makers podcast. We've just finished recording season 1 of that and some fabulous interviews. I never fail to be inspired by some of the people that I interview, which is great when they accept. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I can't believe I'm going to do that. But I get them to share real world things that they've done, from Red Bull to Department of Defense and Cisco and Zappos and just people all over the world, senior managers generally, people who are considered to be culture makers who share their ideas on what it takes to deliver change. Also, something that I'm doing right now during COVID, obviously I'm at home, I'm writing a new book, I'm doing lots of online content for people. I'm also giving my time away for people that want a little bit of help, maybe looking for some coaching right now. Teams who are looking for a bit of inspiration. I did a session with a team in Slovakia last night at 10 o'clock last night around the future focused project manager. So that was great. That was 18 people in Slovakia. So if you want to catch up if you just want a cup of tea, I don't know, if you want to share a little bit about your background, I'd love to hear about it, how you got into doing what you're doing and, what your plans are for you. If you want a 40-minute session, just select the team. If you want a 20-minute session, just select the one-to-one chat. The next webinar is Friday, the 15th of May, and why innovation doesn't belong in a hub. All right, stop sharing my screen. Flick back. Okay, I've got a couple of questions. Oh, so Chrome seems to be the thing for Crowdcast. Okay, well that's good to know. We'll double check on that for next time. Couple of questions. The free online programs and resources alert bar is not loading the right page. Jules has posted that. Thank you. Colin, I have a project team of 10 where we defined our target culture up front, agreed behaviors, and actively worked on culture. Monday morning breakfast, Friday fun as part of the team meeting. Awesome. That's great, Andrew. So great that you did that up front. How do you suggest introducing new team members into the culture as they have not been part of the initial definition? Well, hopefully, Andrew, what you've done is captured your culture in a way, maybe written some things down, because I think it's crucially important that you have a cultural induction. So you want to do all of the things where you introduce different people in different ways. Now every organization does this in different ways. So one team that I worked with last year, we defined how they would bring new people in. And so every time somebody new joined the team, they would all go out for breakfast on the Monday morning, and everybody would share a little bit about themselves, because we wanted to create human connection. And then that person went and sat with each of the areas. There were 4 different areas within the team from off the top of my mind. And each of those areas provided a little bit of insight into what they did across the week. So they weren't just thrown in at the deep end, across the week. And it was very well defined. Now the leader of the team, and she was a leader in every sense of the word, what she did, she provided the cultural induction, right? And she said, as a team, this is what we agreed. And this is what it means in practice. This is what you will see. This is what we expect of you from a contribution perspective. This is what they you know, because part of the program that I did with them, we did personality surveys. So we did the personality survey for new starters. And so that they understood their own preferences. And then they shared, we used colors. They shared what color they are, because that was a big part of their culture. So that we did that in advance. So when they came on board, they already knew, I think this person was green, was a people person. So we talked about communication preferences. The leader outlined the way that she communicated. She was an extrovert. She didn't really like using emails. So I think as much as you can, lay out what the team agreed, but also make it absolutely clear, Andrew, that what in order for the culture to evolve, what we need is their ideas. We need the things that they've done that have worked. Because remember, what we don't want to bring people into a cult, right? So there's a fine line between cult and culture. Cult is this thing that we've created and we only allow people in every now and again. And if you don't conform to the way that we do things, even though it's awesome, then you'll be rejected by the cult. You have to conform to the way that the cult works. Great cultures don't do that. Atlassian, software company in Australia and the US, have a great culture. And so as part of their culture, as part of their induction, you have to change something within the first 90 days. And that's how they stop it being a cult, even though they often talk, when they talk about it, it's quite cult-like. So, you know, make sure that it's something that they're encouraged to be part of and that they're encouraged to change. Otherwise, it does become a cult. Oh, this is the way we do things. And if you don't conform, you don't want that. So I hope that answers the question. Andrew, you know, the work that I do, we produce a culture deck for teams. And so we work with a lot of large programs. We work with a lot of large teams. Well, we did. We're on pause at the minute. We write it down. We produce a culture deck, and then they've got something to talk through. And then they say, okay, we'd love you to contribute to that. Okay. Any other questions? You can use the chat. You can use the question at the bottom. It'd be good to hear on the chat, what's one thing that resonated with you? What's one thing that you took from the presentation? It would be really great if you could pop that in there. What's one thing you feel you're doing well right now? I'd just love to hear kind of some of your feedback. Also, while you're doing that, while you're typing in, just to let you know, if there's a topic that you'd like me to cover on the webinars, you know, because I want them to be for you, not for me, then you can, if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, we can connect on LinkedIn. You can send me a message. If you're part of the Culture Fix community, just send me a direct message. Just click on my name or just search for me, click on my name, just send me a direct message. Somebody asked for emotional intelligence, so I'm going to cover that in a couple of months' time. So yeah. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Start as you mean to go. Yeah, awesome. Neil, link with emotional intelligence. Yeah, it's crucial, that link with emotional intelligence. We need to reset that at the start. Thank you, Angie. That's great. Thanks, Becca. Lots of energy and only the one coffee, which is surprisingly good. It's a weird thing for me, and I know everyone's dealing with this situation in a different way. Because large groups of people, that's where I get my energy. And so right now I'm getting an energy from an empty room. I'm finding it from somewhere. Obviously, my family are giving me being around my family gives me energy. The kids are definitely not sapping it. Awesome. Well, listen, thank you all so much for joining. Thanks, Anthony. Great. Thanks, Rob. Hope you're well, my friend. Great to have you all on the webinar. As I said, if you're on the community, it'll be up there in a couple of hours' time. Otherwise, stay safe out there. Oh, the Star Wars figures. Yeah, the Star Wars figures down there. So this is a little, I get asked this a lot, really, I should say. So I collect mementos wherever I speak, and I've spoken in lots of different countries. They're just memories at the minute. My dad was tidying out the loft not long after Mum died, and he found some old Star Wars figures that we had. So these are the original ones, and so he sent them to me. And so they got a little place there just to remind me of home. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous day. Have a fabulous weekend. And remember the coaching. If you're looking for a catch-up, pop on in there, book yourself an appointment. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks so much and stay well.